Hello, this is Steve Kaempf with the People Not Titles podcast. I'm here with my colleague and cohort and partner in crime, Matt Lombardi. We're here to cover this is the end of May, early June edition of Market Trends. Matt, a lot of news. We're going to go fast. Let's start off with Howard Hanna. Give us the details.
So, hello everybody. Our lead stories, there's actually this one, and the next one covers Howard Hanna Real Estate, which is headquartered out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They have a footprint in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, West Virginia, a few other states. Big independent broker.
Yep.
And so they finally announced that they have settled their commission lawsuit when they were one of the few remaining holdouts that were part of the didn't settle. So just in sum, the Gibson Commission lawsuit has been going on. Howard Hanna Holdings has settled. The agreement is part of the class action, and the remaining holdouts that have not settled as part of the lawsuit include Cry Like, which is a large independent out of Memphis, and then Berkshire Hathaway Energy, which I forget where they're located. But that's number one.
Howard Hanna settled, and they're salty about it, Matt.
Yeah, they're not happy. Nobody wants to.
No one wants to settle. No one wants to write out a big check.
Right, and there's no disclosed dollar amount of what the payment was, and that we've seen this a few times where it's not publicly stated what the dollar amount is. So we don't know what they paid, but any payment for something that they feel they should not pay, they're not going to be happy.
And more than likely, it was 7, potentially 8 figures, right, Matt, with the size of their conglomerate?
Yeah, for how big Howard Hanna is, I would say at least 7 figures. But once again, we don't know. Sizable nonetheless.
Matt, I think even a bigger story for the industry at large, because, hey, great, they settled. They've said uncle. But is that they are in open rebellion against the clear cooperation policy, and that's according to Inman.
Yeah, it's a great headline. I always love Inman for their headline, so this is right on par with that. But CEO Hobie Hanna, who is the obviously CEO of Hanna Real Estate Services, has decided to disregard NAR's clear cooperation policy. And actually, we'll go over the details, but my understanding is Hobie reached out to Nikea Wright and said, hey, just so you know, this is coming your way. This is going out. So don't get blindsided with it, which is a decent thing to do.
Yes.
But in essence, Hobie has said, we ain't abiding by your clear cooperation policy.
Right, and clear cooperation, again, is the idea that all properties should be on the MLS.
Correct.
And properly marketed so that there's no private pocket listing or anything like that.
Correct. I don't quote me on this, but I believe it's within 24 hours of getting the listing.
Yes.
The agent/brokerage needs to put it on the MLS, or else we don't know what's going to happen. So that's where this interesting part comes in.
Why are they pushing against it, Matt? What are they couching this argument in?
They're saying it. Their argument is this policy limits marketing strategies and harms both brokerages and companies. So we've talked a lot on recent episodes about the clear cooperation policy and how it's become this just ongoing battle, ongoing conversation, and ongoing, I'm putting my stake in the ground on one side, the other, or maybe somewhere in between.
And Matt, there's some brokerages that feel like they have some secret special way to market a property to get the max out of it, to squeeze the most value, and it includes holding back the listing, putting it on a private network, making it exclusive, all these various things, as opposed to just putting it on the MLS.
So I believe one of their arguments is the clear cooperation policy is a nationwide policy, which means it covers all states.
So everybody nuanced to every single market segment.
And so real estate is obviously location specific. It's zip code specific. It could be block by block specific of how properties are marketed via the MLS or through other means. And so that's where a big problem comes in.
So Matt, and just so we're clear on this, that the MLS is not saying if you sell or NAR is not saying if you sell a property, you have to do it our way. What they're saying is, if you want to be on the MLS eventually, you have to put it on the MLS right away. You can't hold it and then kind of as last-ditch effort to sell the property, leverage our platform as well.
Right. And Hanna Holdings has been against, I believe, clear cooperation policy for, once again, they don't want to be this nationwide approach to it. It's a location specific thing, brokerage specific. And they've actually said we may leave participating in the MLSs. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
If we pull our listings, good luck. We'll have our own network and our stuff will not be in the MLS.
So we're seeing the potential fragmenting of the dominant. It's breaking up this kind of monopoly of the MLS in one way. That's how one person views it, potentially. On the other hand, the MLS is saying, hey, we're all about proper disclosure. We're all about, but if we recall, Matt, the MLS was really the major carrot that the NAR has been holding over agents for a long time.
Yes.
So there's a lot of this going on where I just had to write out a big check, and now I'm going to kiss your ring again to get on the MLS. So anyway.
So the fun part about this, and I say fun in quotes, is if they don't abide by the clear cooperation policy, that being Hanna Holdings, what are the repercussions? What will happen? What will NAR do? So this is the big constitutional crisis in the real estate industry.
And Compass began actually the conversation, and our next story moves on to Compass.
Correct. So yes, Compass.
So I feel like I'm moving back to the 80s, Matt, with this news story.
So this is one that put a smile on my face, and those of you may, when you hear this, put a smile on your face. But Compass is going to debut a physical in-office book of private listings, also known in the 80s as the MLS book. And
amazing.
For those of us that are of a certain age, Steve, you can attest to this. There was no internet. There was no World Wide Web. There was no computer access to find properties. You literally had to go into a local brokerage's office and say, Steve, what do you have available for sale in this neighborhood?
Right. You got off your horse, you tied your horse to the post, and you walked into the office and you looked at the listing book.
And Steve would pull out the latest listing book, which I believe was produced each Friday, print it up.
Hot off the press,
and say, here are your available properties. So Compass is going to launch their own physical book of private listings called the Compass Private Exclusive Book. Great name. Makes it sound very exclusive. Books will be available for in-office viewing at Compass locations and updated weekly. It is literally going back to what it used to be.
Yeah.
A virtual version will be updated in real time. All agents, including those from other brokerages, are welcome to view the books on a one-on-one basis at any Compass office. You could read into that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yep.
Critics argue the approach reduces market transparency. We've already talked about this ad nauseum in previous episodes. Yeah. It's going to roll out in their largest markets, and then will be based on future places based on demand. So that's it in a nutshell.
Matt,
Steve,
real
perspective?
Estate, so yeah, my perspective is if real estate is supposed to be easier, you know what? We'll see. They could be brilliant, and we just could be mocking at something we don't know. But it seems to me like going back to physical books, physical printing, and all this is taking away the power of technology and making it harder to do business. That's how it feels to me.
We need to get our hands on one of these listing books when they're produced. I would love to see what they're doing and how it's being done. So anybody out there, if you have access to it, let Steve or I know.
Yeah.
We need to see it. But yeah, it's just an interesting story.
And Compass also said that they will not, when these other agents come into their office, they will not try to recruit these agents. Wink, wink.
Okay? So we'll wait and see how this all pans out. As you all know, and seeing Compass, they just grow by buying, getting new and paying for brokerages and or high producing agents. So yes, I'm sure they will not talk to any agents coming in to see their private listing book. And I'm eager to see if anybody does go in and see these private listing books.
Matt, this seems like a very easy thing if I'm working for a different brokerage to sell against. I'll just say at first blush, There's 1,000 different ways to tackle this one and say, why would you want to be in a book in the office as opposed to being on the MLS? So you have to, as a Compass agent, number one, they're going to need data that shows people who have listed with us get this, this, and this, and this is why our strategy is better. And then, even if it is better, every agent better have that pitch down and be confident and persuasive on that pitch, because otherwise, this is something that if I was a Compass agent, I'd be scared to death that this is something that's easy to sell against.
Right. And there's always been private listings.
There's always has.
But it's few and far between. And it's usually if someone wants to remain secretive, someone has a large mansion, property, whatever on the lakefront. They don't want the visibility, notoriety, work it within your private network. So that's always
and there's a limited amount of buyers that can buy a $10 million or $20 million mansion. It's not going to be you don't want every clown walking through your place that can't qualify to purchase it. So there is that privacy and exclusivity of it. I just don't know that it's going to work in the market on a wholesale basis.
So once again, Compass is hitting the headlines with a printed listing book.
Matt, we have the NAR. They had their legislative meetings in D.C. May 31st through June 4th. Scott Jennings of CNN fame and Juan Williams, where's he? Is that Fox? Were both featured speakers. I've seen a few clips of this. Let's talk a little bit about what was discussed there.
So it's happening next week.
It's happening next week.
Yeah, so it starts May 31st and it goes through June 4th. We may have touched this on, but I'll briefly describe. The legislative meetings are one of the major meetings NAR holds each year. This one takes place every year in Washington, D.C., typically May or June timeframe. The purpose is governance, committee meetings.
Lobbying.
And then the second compendium is Hill visits.
Yes.
And when you get 8,000 realtors going to their local representatives saying, we're here, so it's a good photo op.
What are you doing for me?
So that's happening next week. And obviously, most of you will not be going to D.C. if only about 8,000 realtors from the U.S. are going. But this gives you the opportunity, if you have something to share, to speak with your representatives from your local board or association who are going, which would be your board or association CEO, and definitely your leadership team, to say, hey, Mr. and Miss Realtor, these are important issues to me. Mm-hmm. Can you carry these forward when you're on the Hill visit? Mm-hmm. So that's just something to share with you. But the meeting is a great meeting. I love D.C. We were just talking about Washington, D.C. It's a great event. It's a smaller event. It's really focused on legislative things. Obviously, there's sessions. There's a trade expo. But the big thing is the legislative spin to it.
Yeah, we covered this before, Matt, but the NAR has the largest lobby in the country. Is
correct.
Right?
So last year, their expenditures were, I believe, $85 million, which was number one.
A lot of money flying around.
You realtors are spending that money, getting laws passed. And that's another thing that we could talk about. So the budget proposal that had just passed the House last week, there are a lot of things that I know NAR has lobbied for in there, but we can come back to that to see where that goes
on our next
once it goes to the Senate and revisions and who knows what else. But the baseline budget proposal increases the SALT, state and local income taxes that you're able to write off based on your real estate and mortgage. And there's some other things that are advantageous to the industry, which is why that $85 million really pays off.
Absolutely, Matt. Great sell. So, Matt, there's a new consumer guide from the NAR, understanding and protecting yourself from title fraud. And we're big advocates of
so I'm always, scanning and seeing what's being talked about from the mothership NAR. And this last couple of weeks, they've actually had a couple title-related items. One was just a general article of what is title insurance, which is always a good reminder.
People want to know what they're paying for.
Yeah, and so
what the job does.
From real estate pros, realtors out there, who may not, what is title insurance? It's just a good reminder, refresher. And then obviously for home buyers and sellers, what is title insurance? So that was number one. But as we continue to talk about fraud is more prevalent than ever, especially in real estate and especially potentially in title. So NAR came out with this consumer guide of how to understand and protect yourself from title fraud. We've talked about so many of these things, so I'm not sure if we need to go about it, but we could talk about what is title fraud, which someone impersonating you, using fake identification, spoofing your emails. How it happens, I mean, how it happens is
How doesn't it happen?
they're monitoring everything from start to
They're
finish.
watching your email on the whole transaction, and when they find the right time to say, this is the killer moment where I can get my hands on some big dollars, because real estate transactions, there's a lot of money being wired, that's when the spoofers come in and they interject themselves and have redirect the wire, falsify identification of a seller, whatever it is. They have 1,000 ways to do it, and they're thinking of more every day.
And you, whether you're an attorney or a real estate pro, you're the first line of defense to understand and educate home buyers and sellers and the public about fraud in real estate, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, and
So,
one thing, if you're a consumer or if you're involved at all as a real estate professional, the one thing to acknowledge and maybe prepare your customer for is that where things used to happen lickety split, fast, 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 fraudsters love fast, fast, fast. Don't think about it. Send it here, send it there. We got to do it quick. It's got to be over here right away. Banks now are taking their time. Lenders are taking their time. Title insurance companies are taking their time to protect the consumer and all of the parties involved in a transaction. And so just know, give that a little bit of time to breathe in a transaction. Don't be so hurry to push that send button. Just think a little bit, and we'll all be better off.
yeah, there's so much going on. And a little plug for Land Trust. We obviously value security first and foremost.
Absolutely.
We have our own department to help verify identities involved with the transaction.
Payoffs, wires.
So, we're doing everything within our capability and then some to ensure that the closing and your transaction are free of any hacking, cybercrime, etc.
So
It's tough,
Yep.
but we are doing everything within our capabilities from a technology standpoint and a human capital standpoint
absolutely.
to really go through it. And there are, we won't go through the horror stories, but I recently saw one where it was a remote online Iran closing, and the individual looked on the screen legit, the voice was legit, in just a brief second something happened, and you could see on the screen where it flipped from one face to another.
Ooh.
And whoever on the title side saw that and said, we're done here. And like they flipped off the camera and you could see that it was from another country.
Wow.
It was so spoofing visually, audibly, emails. It's too crazy.
Yes.
So sorry.
Thank you, Matt.
Just too much.
Yep. There's a lot of it going on, and just know that the title industry is on top of it, but Land Trust particularly has invested a lot of money in making sure every transaction is safe. Matt, let's get on to, there is a way to end private listings fight altogether. So in Illinois, they're making clear, there's a bill introduced to make clear cooperation the law.
Right. So yeah, you want to have end private listings, put it in your law. And so in the great state of Illinois where we reside, there is a representative named Lillian Jimenez. She is a representative of the near northwest side of Chicago, which includes Logan Square, Ukrainian Village, Bucktown, some of Belmont Cragen, where the northwest side housing ordinance is. Not that that has anything to do with this, but that is, and she is supporting the bill to ensure fair housing and consumer access.
Matt, this will be interesting. This might just be grandstanding or might be authentic and it might go through. However, it'll be interesting that if it's written into law in one part, I believe you might then see a trend to protect the consumer. I'm not so sure I'm excited about it. I think everyone should have their opportunity to talk to people about how they think they should market the property, and the consumer should be able to choose how they're going to market the property. So I'm not a fan at this point.
Yeah, so in a society such as ours, do we want everything open and available and democratic, or do we want things closed off and not everybody has access to it? And I think that's the fundamental heartbeat of this bill.
Yes.
Is fair, equitable, everybody should have the same shot at seeing properties available.
So people have taken a position on this, Matt.
Yep. So obviously Zillow supports this position. They want the open market. And then you have others such as Compass that we've talked so much about. They would be on the other side of, no, we want private listings, Hanna as well. Industry-wise, the Illinois Realtor CEO came out and said this bill may favor business models over cooperation in the industry, and it's not aligned with the Illinois Realtors agenda. So that's just something to keep note of. And usually when bills are floated, and once again, the realtor population is a huge lobbying group, if they're against it, I'm not so sure something like this would pass. And then the last bullet point is the local market dynamics. So Chicago's brokerage community is, historically utilized private listings, which we just talked about. And, MRED has a private listing network.
Right. So they have their own. And there's various strategies, and people can tell you why it works and why it doesn't work.
Right. And so I don't know if you want to take this last bullet point about Laura Ellis at Baird and Warner, what she had to say.
So Chicago brokerage leader Laura Ellis from this Baird and Warner has talked about fear-based recruiting, and she said from an operation standpoint, private listings have long been an option in the Chicago area, and she also noted that MRAD, the local MLS, has its own private listing network for nearly 10 years. So far, Compass agents have entered their private exclusives into MRAD's PLN, allowing the entire real estate community to see what is available. So the difference between this PLN and others are that everyone got to see the private listing network. So
Right.
brokers had an opportunity to see it, where now they're trying to close that little group to be more exclusive, and more exclusive means less visibility.
Right. And Steve, in the private listing network in the MLS, so that allows agents only who are participating in the MLS to see it, and it's not for us consumer-wise to see it. It's a private listing network just for real estate professionals in the MLS.
Yeah.
That is correct,
That's right.
So we, as general public, could not see it.
That's right.
Like on a Zillow or Realtor.com.
Yes. And that it was private to agents only, which still allowed the agents drove most of the business, so it wasn't that private. Yep, you couldn't go online and search it. And Laura makes a comment, goes on record and says, I think that over time, Compass's strategy is not going to work with a typical, successful, highly productive real estate broker. And I will fall in line in agreement with that most brokers are going to look at this and say, they're really trying to tell me how to do my business here, and they're restricting me in that regard. So,
Matt, good stuff.
Yeah, let's move on to inflation.
So we try and touch upon what's happening in the general economy. And so inflation, we've talked about it. 2% is the goal each month. And according to the latest U.S. inflation data in the middle of May, that the CPI, Consumer Price Index, rose by 2.3% over the 12 months ending this past April, marks the lowest annual inflation rate since February of 2021, and was slightly below the economists' expectations of 2.4. So that's a good thing.
Favorable inflation.
Favorable inflation.
Yep.
Still not at 2% or less, but going down.
And key highlights from the CPI report.
Yeah, so some of the key highlights: core inflation, which excludes food and energy, rose by 2.8% year over year. Shelter costs, which which influence the CPI, increased 0.3% and are up 4% compared to a year ago. And shelter costs, because I was like, what is shelter cost? Shelter cost is rent, a primary residence owner's equivalent of what they would pay for rent in their primary residence. Lodging, which means staying at a hotel or motel, what those costs are. And then other expenses, which include property tax, property insurance, maintenance, and upkeep of a home.
So, Matt, we've seen property insurance go up. We've seen taxes go up.
Yep.
Interest rates have risen a little bit, so that's going to add to that, right? So the whole cost and rents there's actually a lot in the rental market available right now, so we might see rents falling a little bit. We might see home prices falling a little bit with the more of a glut of listings, so who knows where that'll be. Let's talk energy prices.
Energy prices saw a slight increase of 0.7%, and that was driven by higher electricity and natural gas prices. Gas was very slightly down. I don't see it at the pump.
No. It shows it. I pull up and go, that's a little better than it was, but I don't have the exact hard data.
I paid $3.05 last week, and I filled up this week, and it was
Wow.
$3.35.
Ooh.
So
Okay, 305 seems like it's cheap in the
and
city.
here in the Midwest, at least in Chicago, I believe with the summer coming up, they switch to a better grade of gasoline to
Oh,
avoid the emissions. So that's why also gas prices go up in the summer.
food prices, Matt.
Food prices overall declined slightly in April. Grocery prices fell by 0.4%.
Eggs.
Eggs dropped almost 13%.
Wow.
So you guys looking for the protein, get your eggs.
Go get eggs.
Go
Okay,
get your eggs.
mortgage news, Matt.
So just a quick snapshot of mortgage rates. We actually, over the last couple of weeks, saw a time period where 30-year fixed rate went above 7%. Snapshot right now, depending on where you're at, 6.8 to 7.1% for a 30-year fixed, and for a 15-year fix, anywhere between 6 to 6.5%. You know, and that's just a mortgage snapshot. It's been fairly level. We talked about that last month, that there hasn't been huge swings in it. But one of the key drivers is treasury yields and how that relates to the mortgage rates. And Moody's, which is a huge credit rating bureau, downgraded the United States and their credit worthiness, which had a direct effect, and that's when interest rates and mortgage rates went above 7 for a
So
time.
U.S. had their credit score drop.
Correct. And, you know, they're looking at things that are being proposed and what may or may not pass, tariffs, budget, all that stuff.
The big, beautiful bill.
Big, I maybe have another name now, but yes, the big, beautiful bill. And so it's passed the House. We'll see what happens with the Senate. I'm sure there'll be some revisions and some modifications. But who knows?
Some expenses.
But who knows? And
let's talk inventory, Matt.
Inventory. So let's start at the United States as a level. So existing home sales declined 0.5% and declined 0.5% from March and 2.2% year over year to a seasonally adjusted rate of 4 million existing homes. The Midwest, rising in the Midwest, falling in the Northeast and West, and flat in the South. Housing inventory rose to 1.45 million units, which is up 9% from March and almost 21% year over year. So we keep talking about inventory levels going up. Those are a good thing, and we need more inventory.
Yeah, you might notice it in your own neighborhoods where you see more signs, more activity. We've definitely seen this in throughout May, where we are now seeing that inventory. People are saying rates are what they are. I gotta move. I'm putting my house up for sale.
So you would think with more listings out there, prices would be declining, but conversely to that, median existing home sales price increased to $414,000, almost a 2% rise year over year. Prices went up in the Northeast and Midwest, but declined in the South and West. But $414,000 median sales price for a home in the United States, I didn't think that would ever happen, and here we are. And so with increased inventory, you would think prices go down, and I think it will eventually go down, but we're still seeing people are holding on to that listing. There is still multiple demand for those listings, even though it has increased.
So prices have held, listings are coming on. We could see with the increase of inventory, we might see those prices dip.
Yep. And so, anything else you want to add on?
No.
Okay. So Chicago metro area. So the latest data from April. Closed sales down 4% year over year. We were hoping for better than that.
We thought we were at the bottom, Matt, but it's
thought
still dipping a little bit below the bottom.
Exactly. Median sales price here in the Chicago metro area went up year over year from $350,000 to $370,000. That's about a 5% increase.
My prediction is this number is going to change and we're going to see that dip, but let's see, Matt.
Inventory of homes for sale went up 3.6%. So that's the trend here as well as what you just saw nationally. So more homes for sale, good thing. I said this last month, I'm going to repeat it. Those homes that are priced appropriately will sell. Those that have unrealistic price I mean, I see it. It's like you're being greedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to be greedy up to a certain respect.
If you can get it, Matt.
If you can get it. But I see houses sitting there 3 doors away from me. Went from $1.2 million, it's now down to $980,000. And I say they need to come down at least another 200,000. But that's just my perspective. So I'll keep you posted on that house.
We shall see.
Um,
And days on market has gone up a little bit, Matt.
Essentially flattish, year over year, month over month. We were hoping for more of a pop with not just inventory, but sales.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't
And so
transpired yet.
maybe, Matt, the days on the market are I'm coming in higher, I'm going to lower as we go, and now there's more inventory coming in, so those homes are sitting a little more. So it's all about pricing, just as you mentioned.
Yep.
Wisconsin,
which has always been the bright spot, there's a little dip in monthly home sales of just over 10% year over year. They're down compared to 2024 by about 600 units. Listings are up. So once again, inventory levels in the state of Wisconsin are up just over 6% to 20,000 listings. And once again, median home sales price increased year over year just over 7%. So in April, the median sales price of a home in Wisconsin was $322,000.
Went up from 300 grand, Matt. So that's impressive for Wisconsin.
So, and months inventory went up almost 6%, fairly flat year over year to 3.6 months.
Matt, tell us what's going on at Land Trust.
So first and foremost, because Market Trends has become so worldwide recognized,
yes.
We're actually going to be doing versions every week moving forward.
Yeah.
So this is
just to meet the man, Matt.
There's so much news, and we're not going to, there'll be obviously shorter, quick hitting broadcasts, but just based on demand, popularity, and of course Steve's witty insights and humor.
Absolutely.
We're going to be doing this weekly, so check that out. Like I said, more condensed, more shorter stuff.
That's probably the biggest news we've covered all year, Matt.
Biggest.
That we've shifted to weekly now.
Biggest and best.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Steve's latest People Not Titles podcast featuring Rob Finley, check it out because it's a really great interview with an interesting guy. You know Rob, he's an entrepreneur, investor.
He's a commercial he owns his commercial real estate brokerage firm, and he wrote a book because he has 4 adult children that have moved on to adulthood, had a situation, and he wrote a book basically that every young adult can use to get assimilated into adult life. And it's called Hey Dad, kind of like when you call up your dad and go, hey Dad, how do I do this? Hey Dad, how do I do that? It's a great book. Great time for graduation, great gift for a young adult to have that book as a manual. How do I protect myself? What do I do with cars? How do I network? All the kind of life skill things that you probably have shared over time, maybe over the dinner table, but this puts it all in one nice package. And so you still want your kids to call you, but they won't call you about these things.
I'm sold. I'm going to buy the book today.
There we go.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Any upcoming podcasts that you want to talk about? Give a sneak peek, or we got to keep it?
Well, so we have a couple, Matt. We have Leslie Grandy, who wrote Creative Velocity. That's an amazing book, kind of a meld of AI, a meld of how to keep creativity within your organization, kind of in the face of AI. Everyone's just going to Google or AI or all that. No, how do we bring humanity back into it? And it's fantastic. And then we have another one that's coming out later in the month that was an interview with Tracy Quinn from Pink Hats Construction. This lady had 8 life sentences and has been freed and is now building homes with hemp and hemp construction products in Chicagoland. That could be the mountaintop podcast that we have produced so far, Matt. So
Steve,
just saying.
You came back and after the interview and were speaking.
Yep, glowingly.
Glowingly, and I can't wait to hear it. So just check that out. All the attorneys who attended our May CLE events, thank you. We had standing room only events in Northbrook and Oakbrook. Thank you to NASBAR for hosting.
It's a chance to meet the Market Trends people in person, Matt.
It's a chance to meet us in person. I mean, how many autographs did you give out?
But dozens.
But thank you to all the attorneys. We'll have future, later on this year, CLEs, more to come. We're going to do a realtor Zoom. We're talking about in June, topic to be determined. But once again, the biggest news is Market Trends will be coming at you weekly, a little more short form, hard hitting.
Yep.
Maybe some investigative journalism.
Oh, could be a lot of commentary. So we will see you at the next Market Trends podcast. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. People Not Titles podcast signing off.
Take care.